I have some friends I want you to meet. There's Demba, and Alpha, and Marie, and Rasmane. They come from across West Africa, but have one thing in common. They're all being hit by high food prices. This is my friend Demba. He's the security guard at CRS in Senegal. He's been protecting the office here for 16 years. Demba and I chat about the weather and the news, but we always seem to come back to the same subject: wrestling. You see, in Senegal, wrestling is the national sport. People follow these guys like American kids follow NBA players. Young boys dream about wrestling when they're growing up. So did Demba, and he became one of the best. Some people still call him champion. He wrestled throughout his youth and stayed with it into his mid-30s. But these days, Demba and other Senegalese aren't talking about wrestling. They're talking about food. The price of food in Senegal and all across West Africa has gone way up. The ingredients for the sauce Demba's daughter-in-law will make for today's lunch costs almost twice what it cost a year ago. The price of beef in Senegal has gone from $5.40 for a little over 2 pounds to about $6.70. And the price of tomatoes is up and the quality is down. But that's not what's causing Senegalese to lose sleep at night. It's the price of rice, the staple food in much of the country. Rice is one of the best foods to feed large families here. A 100-pound bag of imported Asian rice last year cost about $31. Now, because of the spike in global food prices, it's more than $44. But most people can't afford it. So Demba, like a lot of people who live in urban areas, buys small amounts, usually about 8 pounds a day to feed his 12-person family. It costs him almost 50 cents a pound. One guy who knows rice well is my good friend Alpha. He owns a restaurant in the heart of Dakar and sells rice in the afternoon. At night, he sells some of the best roasted meat sandwiches in the city. But rising prices are eating into his bottom line.
In Senegal, the salary is not so high, and then food is expensive. Also, schooling fees is expensive. It is very high, but we are just managing. You can get free medical, everything is expensive because of the fuel. When you go to a drugstore for some drugs to buy, they will say that, okay, now the transportation is increased. That means they have to increase their goods. We are forced to accept it.
Back at Demba's house, lunch is ready. But across West Africa, some people skip it because they can't afford it. Especially people who live in urban areas in landlocked countries, where food has to be trucked. These shipping costs are then passed on to them. Take Rasmane in Burkina Faso. He's a day laborer in the capital, Ouagadougou. Every morning he rides his bike to work and hopes someone will come by and give him a job. The last few days he's been lucky. He and 4 other guys got a job demolishing concrete at a factory. It will take them a few weeks to finish, and they'll each make a total of about $37. Rasmane lives in a slum on the outskirts of town, where there's no water or electricity. His wife makes a few cents every day delivering water to neighbors. With the rise in food prices, they are forced to eat ground millet and a mixture made from baobab leaves. He is sweaty at the end of the day, but hasn't washed his clothes in a few weeks. Soap, he says, is too expensive. Then there's Marie. She's a street sweeper also from Burkina Faso. She's 61 years old and has been getting up at 3 in the morning, twice a week, to sweep the streets of Ouagadougou for 14 years. She makes between $19 and $35 a month. After her husband died in 1997, that's his grave she's sitting on. She had to manage by herself. She told me her 6 kids are unemployed and she often has to feed the grandkids. There's no electricity at her house, so she buys bags of charcoal for $10.70. This is how she cooks. She uses chunks of an old foam mattress to light the fire. Corn, used to make tow, the dish Marie is holding, has gone from 95 cents to $1.30. Today she's making sauce from the husks of the fruit from the kapok tree. She will flavor this with tiny dried fish, which she buys for 8 cents at the market. It's the only meat she can afford. In Niamey, the capital of Niger, vegetable oil costs $2.20 per liter, up from $1.50 last year. Shopkeepers say clients aren't buying, and revenue from it has dropped by 50%. For Burkinabe like Marie and Rasmane, help is on the way. Catholic Relief Services will give $50 food vouchers to 1,500 of the poorest urban households. The vouchers will let families buy staples like rice, beans, oil, and salt. That brings us back to Demba. My West African friends have a lot on their minds these days. All of them endure the food price crisis in silence. People eat less. They pull children out of school because they can't afford the fees. Families visit their home villages infrequently because it costs too much to travel. People are turning to traditional medicine, which is often cheaper than Western medicine. Some people even choose not to go to weddings because they are embarrassed because they can't afford a gift. Demba reminds me that he married his wife, Awa, on March 7th, 1976. And for the last 32 years, they've had a good life. 6 great kids, Demba's always had a job, and he was able to wrestle for years. During that time, he never feared an opponent. You couldn't, he said. You had to be courageous. But now he has a new adversary, the high cost of food. And if prices continue to spike, the champion may have finally met his match.